Hello and welcome to the Blue Monday podcast, discussing the town up or down since 2015. I'm Richard Woodard and you're tuned into the Flagship show, Morecambe Away edition, available every Monday morning. And joining me 24 hours on from our lovely walk at the seaside, Seb Brown and Craig Fimbo. Gentlemen, I mean, I've missed you. I need to, for those watching on YouTube, just here's the image from just before the football there at the Eric Morecambe statue. I thought I'm not sure we've ever looked happier on the podcast in that photo. Craig, we'll start with you. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, there's a very much synchronicity there, isn't there? There's a lot of symmetry in that photo. It's like choreographed to within an inch of its life, that isn't it?
It's almost, yeah.
What you can't tell from that is that we carried on skipping along the promenade all the way back to the ground. Yeah,
to the Mazuma Stadium.
It was a good day, wasn't it? Very good day.
And we need to say, Seb, thank you to our good friend Mullet, friend of the pod, long-time pod VIP, who treated us to fish and chips, didn't he? I'm not sure he already planned to, but
yeah. Do you think he meant it? Do you think it was one of those gestures where we'll go, "Oh no, we'll give you some money back," and we'll just said thanks very much and left the establishment, didn't we? No, a very, very kind gesture, very, very kind. Thank you, Mullet. I'll be seeing him at Fleetwood next week, so I'll make sure I buy him a pint as a bit of a thank you.
Yeah, one of your local games, this one, Morecambe, which we'll talk about more about in a minute. Let's do. There's not much news, but there is two lots of match action this week. More on that shortly. So news. The news. Not too much. Worth mentioning, obviously, that in terms of news, there is bigger, wider context of stuff which we're fully aware of, and hopefully this is a distraction from real life stuff, which is just crazy and bad and horrible. But another demonstration of how these kind of really terrible situations bring out the best in people is Bertrand Selena offering, he's got an apartment in Norway, I think, and he's made that available to shelter a Ukrainian family in need. So, that kind of stuff is exactly, the human spirit that we want to see. So, top marks for to Selena to do that and to be thinking about that. And guys, he's obviously in his statement he said he's a former refugee as well. So it's very easy to forget kind of the real lives that these players have as well. So good on him. On to more mundane matters. Seb, we were talking about Lee Evans in the pre-match, I think, and his injury. Did you mention that no surgery is needed? Can we move on from that topic?
Yeah, no surgery required. We skirted on that, and we both kind of guessed that Backinson would be the one to come into the central midfield position.
Yeah, more on that shortly. And we can also talk about his absence in respect to set pieces as well, if we want as well. And
can I have Lee Evans as be getting injured as my sliding doors moment of the first 6 months of Kieran McKenna's
the McKenna era?
reign.
Yeah, get that in early. Craig's got his beach towel out on the sun lounger. We're all ready for that one.
I can see that one.
And in terms of other bits of pieces of news, Tyree Simpson was linked very briefly for like 2 hours with Paul Cook's Chesterfield. But Phil at TWTD says no. We will talk about attackers and strikers and forward options. But Craig, this is a really complicated situation here. Purely because of the contract situation, which appears to be still unresolved. What's your thoughts on loans or how the situation might pan out?
Well, first and foremost, it's a surprise that Paul Cook's after more signings, isn't it? That first all struck me by surprise. Well, I suppose it's the only way he can get any game time now, isn't it? Is National League, and to be fair, there are some very important matches still to be played in the National League with some pretty half decent sized clubs. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for him to go out on loan. We'll talk about strikers later. We don't know whether he's going to get much of a look ahead of the four that are currently in and around the squad. So it might be in everyone's best interest just to get him out the door again and get him some games under his belt, because it seems to be a ridiculous situation from all parties, really, from the boys' perspective, in that he's now missing out on 6 months of a fledgling career which has started off pretty well, and from the club's perspective, whereby they've got an asset which is just sitting around in some sort of holding pattern until such time as someone blinks. So, yeah, let's hope that a contract of some sort gets signed, and B, he can get out on loan for the last 2 or 3 months of the season, and get someone promoted from the National League maybe.
And so we know he's got this 1 year contract extension. I mean, that gets triggered, doesn't it? If the contract doesn't get negotiated for this extension, you trigger that one, don't you?
Yeah, that gets triggered and he gets sold, presumably in the summer, doesn't he? I mean, there are links with Championship sides. You don't know how much of it is just his agent putting stuff out there, do you, to try and strengthen his position for the negotiating table? But there's links with Championship sides, and if he wants to move on, I'm guessing it's probably left a bit of a bad taste in his mouth, isn't it? Because he seemed really, really happy at Swindon. All his social media was how happy he was playing there, and he's probably fed up that he's had to come back with this contract issue going on and on. So there's always a date, isn't there, in May or April where they have to trigger the options by. So if that gets triggered, I'm assuming he'll be moving on in the summer, and we'll try and get a bit of a fee for him.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if he's an undisclosed fee to Swindon, but it would be a shame given the potential that he has for the rest of the season to make an impact potentially with Ipswich. It would be really dumb of him and his agent. Maybe it's just his agent. We obviously don't know the ins and outs of that situation to miss out on the opportunity to put yourself in the shop window even more, because playing for Ipswich, coming off the bench and maybe making an impact is going to be better than playing in the National League. But maybe his head is fully turned and this situation is untenable. We don't know, but fingers crossed again for some common sense. Let's jump into some match action. The first set of our match action. And full disclosure, the three of us are recording this shortly after an epic penalty shootout in the League Cup final. Really excellent penalties, guys, until you got to the keepers, Paul Kepper. That's so interesting how that has come full circle with him. Did he refuse to be subbed a few years ago?
Yeah, a couple of years ago, refused to come off, didn't he? He stayed on, and he was brought on with a minute to go, wasn't he? In extra time, presumably to be the crucial difference in the penalty shootout, which he was, just not the way him or Chelsea wanted it to be.
But fair play to Trevor Chalobah to step up and take the 20th penalty, having the previous 19 having gone in. That took some balls as well, didn't it? To put that away. So yeah, good luck to him.
Oh, Reece James as well, who obviously we know from his loan at Wigan. I was convinced that he was going to miss. He'd kind of had his... Gary Neville was concerned about him having his hands on his hips or something, but he paused for about 10 seconds before the referee blew the whistle, and he paused for 10 seconds, and you think, man, he's got to score. He's going to miss this, but no, fair play, right in the corner. I
thought the Liverpool goalkeeper's penalty was superb as well.
Yeah, lovely.
Young lad, obviously not the number one choice, young lad, and that was an absolutely top-class penalty. So yeah, real quality on show, wasn't there?
And it was an afternoon of the goalkeepers and for penalty drama at the Gold Star Ground as ITFC Women made history. They are in the quarterfinals of the Women's FA Cup. A fantastic achievement, and a really excellent afternoon, really entertaining kind of match, a bit of a chess match for 90 minutes, and then an extra time. It all hell broke loose. It went crazy. We need to firstly mention Abby Lafayette and Lucy O'Brien, sponsored by the pod. Obviously, Abby in the starting lineup. Lucy was fit enough to make a return on the bench, having been out with a fractured wrist. And we spoke with Olivia Smith and Paige Peake and Natasha Thomas, who are all featured in the starting lineup as well. Must be said, record attendance for an ITFC women's fixture, guys, 1,167. I don't know how many people are attending League Two matches yesterday, but you'll be hard. Was probably be pushing some of those attendances down at that level close. That's excellent turnout. And we met Andy, we met Rob, we saw Paul Westlake, Chris, who's one of the friends of Blue Monday, Adam, and a lesser spotted Dave Diamond was in attendance as well. But as we mentioned, very tense affair. The ball was put in the net once in normal time by Eloise King, but probably quite fairly flagged for offside. But Southampton, a really physical, imposing side, obviously a title rival, and Ipswich were excellent. Summer Hughes out wide doing the running. We know about Laffey and her set pieces. That caused some real danger for us as well. Kyra Robertson and Bonnie Horde in midfield were excellent, and Paige Peake, we mentioned her already, excellent at centre back as well. So it was a really excellent team performance. How many times have I said excellent now, by the way? I need to get a different adjective. There was a bit of a worry. Natasha Thomas went down with an injury and eventually had to be subbed off. Anna Gray was pushed into an attacking position. And in the second half of added time, guys, after great work by another sub, Eva Hubbard, ball falls to the edge of the area. Bonnie Horde keeps the ball alive. And Anna Gray hits a fantastic volley right into the top corner. Keeper of Southampton, Kayla Rendell, had no chance, can only palm that into the top of the net. And it looked all like it was going to be everything is coming up Ipswich until the final minute of the second half of extra time. And Kayla Rendell from one end to the other. And this is, have you seen this, guys, on the internet yet? It is
phenomenal header, isn't it? To be fair,
it's a great set piece. I'm trying to remember who took it. I think she might have scored against us in the League Cup. But Kayla Rendell's gone up for the corner, as you'd expect, guys. And what a great header, Seb, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely superb. She gets that. I mean, at that stage, it's I don't want to use the term S or bust, but it's throw the keeper forward, let's see what happens. And it's a superb header, isn't it? And I guess, how was it in the crowd? Because normally when that kind of thing happens, it's instant deflation, and you're thinking, oh no, we're going to penalties. Did the crowd instantly respond to it?
It's literally the last kick of the game. We do kick off, but that's it. And I think Dave and I looked at each other with a sense of foreboding. And actually, you can see the corner. I'm annoyed that I haven't got the note who took the corner. I think she ended up missing one of the penalties or taking one of the penalties. She slips over as she takes it, and you kind of think, oh, she's obviously shanked that out and game over. But the crowd, which had been quite quiet, I was hoping for more, given it was over 1,000. They did come into their own in the penalty shootout. I think Southampton. I think they faded a little bit. I think it was harsh that it ended that way, but Kayla Rendell will be viral on Twitter for a few days, no doubt. Plenty of retweets. But of the goalkeepers, it's Sarah Quantrill who will make herself the hero. And really fascinating here in added time, in extra time, Lucy O'Brien's brought off the bench along with Issy Bryant. Both of them are young players with kind of a minute to go. I think maybe even after the goal. To take penalties. And you think these are two youngsters, young players, and both 18 or under, I think. And Lucy O'Brien was first up. And you're kind of thinking, wow, what a big stage to put her into. Kayla Rendell, the keeper, all kinds of histrionics off her line, chatting away to the players. And Lucy O'Brien calmly dispatches her penalty. Izzy Bryant takes hers next, slams it into the top of the net. Zoe Barrett takes hers as well. She had a good game. She grew into it and got better and better, and she took a fine penalty. And Paige Peake, who was, for me, player of the match, I think Dave Diamond as well, player of the match, smashes in her penalty as well. And the home crowd advantage, we talked so much to Natasha Thomas, to Paige, and to Liv Smith about, came into its own because they were taking it at the kind of the North Stand end, as it were, at the Gold Star, and that unsettling noise from the home support, which included Dave and I and various others, did the trick. And 2 saves by Sarah Quantrill, and Town are in to the hat for the quarterfinal. The draw is made on Tuesday morning at 9:15, and they are the only third-tier team left in the draw, along with Arsenal, Birmingham, Chelsea, Coventry United, Everton, Man City and West Ham. So, guys, we obviously send out our huge congrats to the team and are hopefully excited for, well, who would you want? Would you want, I think Coventry are probably maybe the lowest ranked team in there, perhaps. Would you want to go for them, or do you want one of the big guns?
It'd be interesting to play Man City. It was Man City a couple of years ago, wasn't it? So it'd be interesting to play them again and see what the difference is from a couple of years on. That'd be quite an interesting one, I think.
Yep. Craig, any preferences, any thoughts there? What you'd want?
Yeah, I think you probably want to wait another round or so, wouldn't you, to get Man City? Try and get as far as you can.
Semi-finals, you mean?
Yeah, I think so. No, fair play. It's and as you said, Rich, to have the equaliser go in last kick of the game, it must be so. It just shows mental strength to get yourself up for it again, doesn't it? And slog out the penalty. So yeah, fair play to everyone. It's fantastic. And I saw the clip on YouTube of Joe Sheehan, the emotion at the end of it and stuff like that. So brilliant. Hopefully they're having a few beers to celebrate as we speak.
Fingers crossed. Exactly right. Deliveroo maybe delivery chicken burger and stuff like that. That's what we want. I didn't want to do a segue, but we'll talk about chicken in a sec.
I hope that is a segue, mate. Otherwise, it's a bit
maybe
weird
we'll do that. But I did want to wrap it up. Actually, that was just totally inadvertent. But a great crowd. Yeah, over 1,000. That's the record attendance for an ITFC women's match. So many great stories there. And as you say, Craig, the narrative typically is keeper pulls out of the bag some kind of crazy last minute equaliser, and then goes on to save the penalties. But not so. The team, as a collective, did so well today. It was really exciting to be part of it, really proud to see that team go from success to success, and great psychological boost for when they play Southampton in the league in about a month's time. We'll be back in a sec to talk about Morecambe.
With wings more crisp than a James Norwood finish, ribs meatier than a Sam Morsey tackle, and chicken tastier than Wes Burns, Favourite is Britain's tastiest chicken. And as a listener of the Blue Monday podcast, you can get 20% off by entering BM20 at the checkout. Order direct from their menu at chicken-ipswich.co.uk. They'll deliver anywhere within a 2.7 mile radius of the store. And if you're not quite as local as the Bond family, you can click and collect. The store is located just off Hadley Road. Favourite, Britain's tastiest chicken.
So after Morecambe we go, and a long old trip for you, Craig. Mine a little bit less for me. I've probably got a 30 odd mile advantage, but not too much. Seb, it's basically a home game for you, isn't it? Let's be honest. But a lovely day, as we mentioned. Bit windy, but nice to see blue sky and a bit of sunshine. And as for, let's talk about Ipswich first. 4 changes, guys. We've obviously mentioned the absence of Evans. Here are the lineups for those of you watching on YouTube. We mentioned Backinson coming in, slotting in alongside Morsey, but it's always going to be this front 3, Craig, that is going to be the big debating point. What was your thoughts on the selection of Aluko and effectively a 2 up front with Norwood and Bon?
Well, as Ben and Seb spoke about pre-match, is that it was whether we went sort of like for like up against their towering centre halves, or whether we went a more subtle variation with like 2 number 10s and a single striker. But as it turned out, we went for the 2. As we were eating our fish chips and mushy peas pre-match, I was sitting next to Mullet and Mullet Senior, and I thought that that was the team that I selected. Actually, Backinson was pretty much a shoe, and I think he started all his matches. He started have been away games, haven't they? Pretty much, I think, as far from what I can remember. And yeah, just having a bit more support up front for a single striker. So going 2 up front, although as it transpired, as ever, sort of Norwood was pulling out more to the left, wasn't he? And Luca nominally to the right, but pretty much central. So yeah, no real surprise from my perspective.
Yep. I mean, we've got the average positions here, and as you said, Norwood, both kind of Norwood and Bon dragging out a little bit to the left-hand side here, isn't it? So, yeah, we'll talk more about that configuration shortly, because we've got plenty of questions about that. Seb, the big news for Morecambe, obviously the departure of Stephen Robinson as manager to St Mirren, and Derek Adams coming back in, and not too many changes as probably unchanged, you guys expected.
From Rotherham, unchanged from Rotherham. Me and Ben were debating what do we think was going to happen. Derek Adams tends to be a 4 at the back manager. He was very much a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-1-4-1 the first time he looked after Morecambe. So I guess longer term he'll look to go back to that. But having been in the building for 2 days or whatever, and putting in, by all accounts, what was a pretty good performance away at Rotherham, it's unsurprising he left it the same. And it was an exact matchup, wasn't it? Because we had Aluko in the 10 role, they had McLaughlin in the 10 role, so it was an exact matchup with the 3 at the back.
Yep, and we obviously need to mention the star man there, or the man to watch out for, was Cole Stockton. They didn't get a huge amount of time on the ball yesterday, or on Saturday, I should say. And some ex-Ipswich Town representation there. Tamani Diagaraga and Shane McLaughlin, as you mentioned, Seb, and on the bench, Dylan Connolly as well. So one time, a couple of youth players and a loanee there. Let's get into the action. I mean, there's a lot of possession for Ipswich. This isn't going to come as a great surprise. The pattern of the game, very similar to Cheltenham's first half, but just stretched over the 90 minutes. I wanted to get your thoughts in the first 15 particularly, so we can talk about more specific things later on. Firstly, the poor surface, Craig, and this is something that I think at third tier level is a bit of a I was about to say a rude word then, but I'm not a big fan of teams kind of relying on a poor service to stop the better teams in the division. In terms of poorness, we'll come to Seb on this one as well. The set pieces as well, they just weren't working. Talk to us about team. Are you chilled with the idea of teams like Morecambe letting the surface kind of deteriorate a little bit if it gives them an advantage? Is that to be understood? I guess it's to be understood, but it doesn't make it right.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't make it right, but the only way you're going to get around it is by getting out the division, isn't it? You've got by hook or by crook, you've got to find a way of getting out of the division and getting over it. Although to be fair, and it was obviously it was very bobbly. People were having to take an extra touch or two to get it under control. There wasn't that much one-touch passing. I think it only happened in the first half, whereby we had a bit of a one-touch play, didn't we, down the right-hand side, where Aluko had a first-time ball into Burns, who got the cross in first time as well. That's pretty much the only time in the entire game where we had a bit of one-touch football. It was very controlled and cautious in terms of just getting the bloody thing under control first before you worried about. And that certainly did affect us and the way that we played. Although saying that, we still managed to create some very, very good chances, which I'm sure you'll go through in a bit more detail in a sec.
Yep.
I'll let Seb talk about set pieces, but we didn't. It just seems weird. Actually, I'm going to talk about set pieces.
Go for it.
It just seems weird that we had nobody to take them other than Thompson. Thompson was obviously the designated set piece taker for everything. He took everything, didn't he? He took all the free kicks and the corners from both sides. And despite how bad they were, he kept on taking all the free kicks and all the corners from both sides. But I'll let Seb carry on.
Yeah, just very brief on the pitch, sorry. Right at the start of the first half, Danassian loses the ball under his boot, doesn't he? And then it happens to Aluko right at the start of the second, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's like the first minute or two, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's what I mean. So
Walton bowled it out to him, yeah.
Yeah, they had to calibrate their touch, didn't they? Yeah, set pieces. I'm going to, we're bemoaning these set pieces, Seb, quite right. Let's get these out of the way so we can talk about the rest of the game. Given we know that McKenna's a really good coach and sets up really good sessions, I'm just a bit frustrated that our set pieces continue to be so mediocre. What's your take on this?
Yeah, incredibly frustrating because it should. We've been spoilt in the past with the likes of Waghorn and his delivery, but like Craig said yesterday, there was nobody. We didn't mix it up at all. I mean, we had 12 corners in that match. I think we put one into a half decent position when Edmondson couldn't get underneath it and he went harmlessly over the bar. But so many of them were just floated in, and the keeper plucks it out the air, or we didn't beat the first man. And the frustrating thing is, when you're at corner number 5 and you've had 5 poor deliveries, give somebody else a go. Surely Burns can have a go, or Aluko's got a lovely left foot. He can look to bend it in. And it's so frustrating. We just kept doing the same thing over and over again, and we were no threat at all. We spoke about missing Evans, and I guess maybe we would have done better with him. He likes to sort of whip it in a bit more under the crossbar, doesn't he? But it was so frustrating yesterday. Thompson did. We'll come on to the goal, etc., and overall opinions. But Thompson didn't have a great game, and their set pieces were a large part of that.
But we don't even look like scoring. The central defenders don't even look like they're going to be in the right place to attack it either, really. Even despite how poor the quality of the ball coming in, we just don't look effective from them at all. It just seems, as you say, Rich, just seems a really strange situation to find ourselves in, given the way that we're set up, the way that we're structured, the style of play. It's all there, and it was there very, very quickly from a coaching perspective. We went from looking like a bit of a shambolic setup to being a completely different, well drilled, well oiled. Everyone knows what they're doing in this particular formation and setup, but still the set pieces seem to be a bit of an anomaly in that respect.
But interesting, when Man United played Leeds a couple of weeks ago, Harry Maguire scored from a corner, and the Sky Sports commentator said that was their first goal from a corner in 140 efforts or something so far this season. So maybe even at United, it wasn't something they really focused on. So it's not something that's part of his sort of repartee. I guess at that level they have dedicated set piece coaches and stuff like that. But maybe it's just not a major part of his skill set.
This annoying thing for me, the simple thing to do is to at least do drills where you play the ball to somewhere other than on top of the goalkeeper so that he can just pluck it out of the air. That for me is the issue, is that the delivery is a little bit inconsistent when Evans isn't in the team, certainly. But I would, if you're going to designate someone as a corner taker, and Chaplin, I think, came on and took some towards the end. He certainly did against Cheltenham, I think.
He did yesterday, yeah.
He took over, yeah.
And I think if Thompson's going to be the taker as well, they need to be kind of between the edge of the 18-yard box and the penalty spot for me. They're far too close to the goalkeeper at the moment. And as you say, then the issue, Craig, as you said, is where do you put people to attack that? But as long as you know that you're going to get a consistent delivery, you know where to be. And this is a strategy that works really well, by the way, for the ITFC women's team, who have got excellent set piece takers, and it's a real threat for them. It's a really, in tricky games like today against Southampton, it could have it nearly made the difference.
It needs to be a threat for us, doesn't it? Certainly, if you're not scoring goals elsewhere, it's just another string to your bow to have a decent set piece and at least look a threat from. We just don't look a threat from them, let alone scoring from them.
And you know that on this podcast we like narratives. We're going to talk about what is ultimately a frustrating outcome here. And as you know, an own goal from a corner, or a Wolfenden or an Edmondson header from a corner, and this game might be different. But anyway, there we go. We've dealt with corners. More work needed. The first proper chance here, guys, is on 30 minutes. Craig. Sammy Morsey doing his spin on the ball. All of our midfielders turn on. Aluko was doing it as well. Turned their man and ran with the ball. But Morsey does really well here, and this is almost his first goal for Ipswich in this curling effort. And do you remember that bit?
Yeah. Well, it seemed to be, it must have been the tactics, because as Seb said, both sides were matched up like for like. But certainly Backinson and Morsey had so much space. Yeah, they were always in space to receive the ball, and I can only suggest that's the tactics and the way that we were set up, is that Morsey seemed to have more space than most on the pitch, and that may, just by definition, being a superior player to most of the players on the pitch. But a couple of times he picked the ball up. Once he could have had a shot, I think he fed it into Aluko. But this time, he sort of cut inside from the left a little bit and curled it towards the far post top corner, and the keeper he got a hand to it, but he pushed it onto Bond's head, who was probably, 2 or 3 yards out of the angle. But it's probably a little, if it happened in September, October, he might have got it on target. As it was, it didn't hit the target, and it was probably a bit too close and a bit reactionary. If he'd reacted a bit quicker and got on target, it'd been a goal. But I think it probably was a bit close to him to think about what he's going to do before he did it. It was just like an instant reaction. But yeah, and sadly for us, it went wide. I think Norwood had a bit of a snapshot, didn't he? Before that, Backinson clipped it towards the back post, and he sort of chested it and volleyed it, didn't he? That didn't manage to get that on target either, which is going to be a bit of a recurring theme throughout the match, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, there's 2 moments here for Backinson to contribute, Seb. One's across again to Bon in the air, and there's a header that. Well, we'll get your thoughts on whether you're being as sympathetic as Craig is for that first one. And also, he has a kind of a Morsey moment, doesn't he? And goes on a surging run and has a shot. Do you want to mention those 2 bits and give us your thoughts?
So the first header, like Craig said, I can kind of forgive Bond because it came back to him so quickly that, like Craig said, in September it hits him and it just bounces into the goal, given the form he was in. So that one I can sort of forgive him for. This one, Backinson chips like a lovely ball over all the defenders, and he's running in at the back post, and he just completely gets it wrong, doesn't he? I don't think he's under that much pressure from the defender, and I think it hits did it hit the stanchion or the side netting? It was hard to see where we were standing, wasn't it? But that one, surely you've got to get the header on target. It's a lovely floated ball, and he's running onto it to generate the power, and surely he's got to hit the target there. And that one went down as a bad miss. And then the Backinson one, like Morsey, starting to find some space. We were all screaming shoot, weren't we, every time Backinson and Morsey had the ball within sort of 20, 30 yards of the goal. And he gets a decent shot off, and the keeper sort of touches it round the post. So the Bond one for me definitely should have hit the target, and that one should have put us 1-0 up, I feel.
And that's all I've got for the first half, guys. I mean, I've tried to be quite sparing because there are plenty of efforts on goal here. We need to say that. But
there's one for Aluko, wasn't there, when he had a good chance and the defender stuck out a leg and it went over the bar.
Yeah, so lots of these kind of blocks and that kind of stuff. I've kind of picked out the ones that.
Sorry, mate. I'd say they did do that worse, though. They were throwing themselves in the way of everything, weren't they? Whether it be crosses, whether it be shots. Morecambe were, chucking themselves in the way. They defended well.
And when they couldn't get a block or a final touch on it, the keeper pulled out an amazing save.
Yeah, exactly right. Last line of defence. And it's worth saying Morecambe, apart from a free kick way over the bar, really contributed nothing to the spectacle at all. And for Derek Adams' kind of big day, as it were, I don't think the atmosphere was particularly jumping either. It was in the away end, as per good old Blue action. And there's a double change at the break, which includes the introduction of someone who's going to come on and be very important in a minute. There's another effort before that for Bonn. About 60 minutes, guys, just before we score.
That's where the keeper made a complete balls up of it, didn't he? You said at the time, Steve, didn't you? We couldn't sort of make it out from where we were seeing, but he's like waving one arm at the ball, wouldn't he? God knows what he's trying to do to it, but. And, again, that didn't fall for anyone. They did it. It bounced out. It drops
for Burns, but he can't really do anything with it. No. And then a minute later, Seb, down our left-hand side, it's always going to go wrong, isn't it? There's so many. These are kind of goals that we've used to being conceding under Paul Cook. Yeah. Less so, and this record of minutes without conceding a goal is sadly going to end, isn't it?
Yeah, so McLaughlin's got Thompson at the byline, hasn't he? He's putting him under pressure, and Thompson sort of stumbles as he goes to clear the ball, so he can't get any power on the clearance. He stumbles backwards, and the ball just falls for Phillips, one of the guys that came on at half-time. He plays a quick 1-2 with McLaughlin, and Edmondson sort of gets a foot in, doesn't he? He manages to direct the ball away from a little bit, but Phillips is just strong, and he gets to the byline, and Thompson comes back across, but between them they can't get the ball out for a corner. Decent crossing under pressure from the byline, and you've got a diving header from Wildig on the sort of around the penalty spot into the top corner. Burns and Donatian are kind of out of position because I guess they think the cross isn't going to get in from there. And yeah, that was their first effort, only effort I think on target, was it? First effort in the match, and we've absolutely dominated up until that point, and it kind of summed up the game that Thompson had, that he was the one at fault for the original clearance. And Edmondson had one in the first half, I think, where he should have cleared it and he didn't, and I guess you could try and level that accusation in for that one as well. It was a couple of poor things down our left, and yeah, at that point, having dominated and had all the shots we've had, you're thinking, oh no, it's going to be one of those days. And Wildig was a big player under Derek Adams previously. He started 40 games last year in League Two, 9 goals. This season he's only started 7. I don't know if he's been injured or for what reason he's not been playing, but popped up at the right time, and frustratingly the header flew into the top corner.
It's a nicely placed header, wasn't it? I mean, he's
got Burns sort of on the line, isn't he? And he can't clear it. So the accuracy of the header is really good. But it was a really good cross, I thought, from Phillips down on the byline under pressure. He puts a decent ball in.
And then there's a sense of kind of foreboding because we know what's happened against Cheltenham. This dominance without being able to convert a chance, and now you're a goal behind as well. This situation is kind of even more stark. But to be fair, there is no panic. The team continue to try to do the right things. 69 minutes, guys. There's a triple substitution here. Craig, you were clamouring for the lineup or the front three that we got. That front three is replaced on 69 minutes. Sorry, it's Selena Jackson and Chaplin come on. Knowing what you know now, was the original three that you wanted and got the right one, or would it have been a different configuration? Because this is the debate we're going to have. This front three, Bonn, Norwood, chances, yes. Aluko contributed, yes, but really not in a compelling sense, did they? No,
point of order. I wasn't clamouring for the formation. I predicted
it. Okay, fine. Okay.
But I to be fair, I probably would have gone for that as well, because the last 2 times that Jackson's played through the middle with Selena and Chaplin behind him, we've drawn both those games 0-0. It was Milton Keynes and Cheltenham. But however many minutes they played on the pitch together, starting those 2 matches, didn't produce a goal. But yeah, Norwood was poor yesterday when it was bouncing off of him. He wasn't winning any of his particular battles. I say one snapshot in the first half, which went over, and that was pretty much it. All we saw from him. He was very, very quiet and very peripheral. Bonn was a bit more involved through the centre, but as Seb said about that, he should have scored that header, the one that was clipped to the back post by Backinson. You just simply got to score it. And post match, Morsey called him out didn't he? Certainly in the radio, when I was listening to the radio on the way home, he said that Bond's got to score that, and it was the frustration in those post-match interviews from both McKenna. You talk about it in a sec, but both from McKenna and from Morsey, it was you didn't have to read between too many lines to work out which area of the pitch which people they were more frustrated with. And to be fair, I thought Selina played really well when he came on. I thought he actually got the ball down, and as we're talking about that pitch, to be able to run with the ball as often and as eagerly as he did, and he was beating his man every time. He was taking the mickey at some points. He was literally standing on the ball, waiting for him to come, and he just walked past him. And you know what he is? He's direct. If he doesn't have a shot, he'll try and get a cross in. Admittedly, it doesn't come off all the time, but at least he's trying to make something happen. I thought he was very impressive when he came on. Just by virtue of getting us further the pitch, getting us into the box, jinking around, creating a bit of mayhem by getting a few crosses in. He had a long shot, didn't he, which was heading towards the top-ish corner, which the keeper tipped wide. Jackson had obviously injected a bit of pace. Whether he'd have injected that when three fresh centre halves rather than 3 tiring centre halves, I don't know. But what is quite interesting, actually, and I started to look at it for the last pod, is the timings of these subs. They seem to be happening at exactly the same time in matches. Like 70 minutes will make 2 subs or make 3 subs. So it's a little bit. I appreciate it's giving everyone a fair whack of time to get things. You've got 70 minutes to prove your worth, sort of thing. But it might be starting to get a little bit formulaic in terms of the substitutions that we're making.
So I was going to ask a question about that. I'll put it to Seb because you've got something to talk about in a second, Craig. Spoiler alert. The impact. Do you agree, firstly, with Craig's assessment that Selina made an impact? And if you do, is that a consequence of him being introduced at that stage in the game? Do you get the same level of impact if he starts? I guess is the flip side of my question. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think it was the tiring defenders that made him have so much joy. And what was frustrating as well, he was playing in the sort of the left-hand channel, wasn't he? And he was doing really well to beat his man. But Thompson at that point seemed to be absolutely gassed and either, was told not to get forward as much, which I can't believe, or he just didn't have the confidence to go on the outside of him and really look to whip the ball in. So Selina was kind of doing all the hard work. And then when he had the opportunity to lay it off as an outlet, then, the cross was inevitably relatively poor or Thompson wasn't up with him. So I think he played really well, like Craig said, when he came on. He definitely changed things in our favour massively, but I think it was probably a consequence of the tiring defenders because we'd had so much of the ball. They were chasing shadows for 70 minutes before he came on, and they must have been absolutely goosed.
And that F on 76 that Craig was talking about we were right behind that, weren't we?
Look, it was, wasn't it? Yeah, he got it onto his right foot. He cut inside, got onto his right foot, and it was going straight in the top corner. And unfortunately, the keeper, who was the man of the match, I'm assuming, pulled off one of several top draw saves.
Yep. Did Chaplin or Jackson stick out for you at all? Did they? I guess they came on and contributed, didn't they?
Jackson's pace caused a bit of trouble, didn't it? He was sort of starting to run the channels a little bit and getting in behind a couple of times. He got in once and pulled the ball back, but I don't think anybody was there to sort of tap it home. So his pace made a difference again, probably like Craig said, against tiring defenders. Chaplin, I thought, was a bit quieter. Took over the set pieces from Thompson, but they didn't really improve dramatically, did they? I don't think so. It was very much Selina was the top of the 3 players that came on.
Interesting point Rich. Interesting point that Seb made there about Jackson, running the channels, getting onto these balls, which these balls are played. You think, Christ, we've hit that too hard, but he makes them into good balls, or he's got the pace to get to these balls and pulling them back. But by virtue of him being the one person up front, there's no one there to get on the end of them. And obviously the Burton match where he played well in, he was playing as part of a 2 or a 3 up front. He was playing in the channel rather than through the middle. So I'm not entirely convinced that he's still, the man to play a single role up front. I think he'd be better in a partnership, so that at least this, when he does run those channels, which he does do very well, and when he gets his head up, which he picks out people when he gets into those positions, there's going to be someone there to slam it home.
And that was shown, wasn't it? We had a shot. Sorry, we had a shot from the edge of the area at one point, didn't we? Where the keeper got down and tipped it left, but there was nobody to run onto it and slam it home, was there? I think it was maybe Selina got the shot off, and the keeper made a good strong hand, but it was ideal for somebody in the box coming alive, running onto it, and there was just nobody there.
We're getting a little bit panicky and then on 87 minutes, Craig, is Jackson involved in this one? Am I right in thinking? Yeah, there's a role in this situation.
Yeah. He's talk about running the channels. This time we'd clipped it over towards our left wing towards the corner flag down there, and he'd managed to again make it into a decent ball. He knocks it back to Chaplin, who in turn lays it back to Thompson. And as Seb said about Thompson, I thought his confidence had gone. I don't know whether it was the goal that knocked it, but he was just, by then he was not crossing the ball. It was being laid back to him, and he was taking a touch, knocking it backwards. He's just basically stopped crossing the ball. And it probably shows in this instance where he put a hell of a dodgy, scuffed cross in, which happens to fall at Burns' feet, and even then it bobbles around a fair bit, and it's stuck under his foot, and somehow he manages to dig it out of his feet and drag it into the bottom left corner of the goal.
Keeper's not getting anywhere near that. So it's one of those ones through a crowd where Burns has placed it right where it needs to, right across the far post.
Yeah, and fair play to Burns again. Crikey, how many times has he dug us out of a hole in these situations? And it's
our
not
saviour, Craig.
Well, very much so. But it's not a normal Wes Burns goal in that it normally the ball's fed in, behind their left wing back into space, and Burns is running onto it and slamming it in. This was, I say, scuffed, bobbled into his feet, and then it bobbles around his own shins and feet and a couple of defenders' feet, and fair play to just getting a shot away. But we were sort of huffing and puffing by this point, weren't we? And we don't really have a throw the kitchen sink option. It will just be pass. We'll find a way through. And so we got this goal. We've got to quickly get the ball back. There's no real celebration with the fans.
No.
Let's get the ball back to the halfway and try and get the winner, which we almost did, to be fair.
Well, 2 minutes later, guys. So at this point, the configuration of the away end means I can't see a bloody thing, and I'm surrounded. It's the land of the giants for me. Who wants to talk to it? Seb, do you remember? Were you able to see this one?
I saw the ball come in, but I'll be honest, I didn't see the Donatian chance. So, Craig, if you had a better view, feel free to talk us through.
Yeah, I saw. I've obviously got an inch, I reckon, on you two. So, I don't know who crossed the ball.
Was it Jackson again?
It may have been Jackson, but basically, Donatian, as you expect your right centre half to be, he's about 3 yards off the goal line, running in full pelt, and it sort of just hits him on the chest. Just running in, it hits him on the chest, and you expect it just to be bundled in, and the goalkeeper just happens to be standing right in front of him and just manages to claw it away. But it wasn't shown on any of the highlights. I don't know why it wasn't shown on any of the highlights, given it was a chance about 3 or 4 yards out. But it was literally just flashed across, hit him in the chest as he was running in, and the goalkeeper just happened to be standing there to palm it away. Right
place, right time. But at least we went for it. Probably just a little bit too little, too late. But that's your lot. That's the 1-1 draw. There's a few bits and pieces just to sum this game up. Here's for those watching on YouTube, the attacking momentum graph that I so love on SofaScore, which basically shows an entirety of dominance, apart from a little flurry at the start of the second half and one big stack for the goal that Morecambe scored. But otherwise, what's noticeable, I think, is it's not just Ipswich have dominance. It's clear dominance. The bars here are really deep. I don't know what the scale is, by the way, but that presumably doesn't surprise you guys as much as 72% possession, 22 shots, 8 of which are on target. 8 block shots, to your point earlier, Craig, as well. 12 corners. We talked about those. Seb mentioned those. Big chances, 5-1. Big chances missed, 5-0. And we hit the woodwork, although I can't recall when that was. But everything but the goal is probably the headline for this game, isn't it? At least the winner.
Yeah. If we score an early goal, same as Cheltenham.
Matthew said that, didn't he?
If we score that early goal, it's a completely different game. And and I think McKenna sort of alluded to it in his interview. We go in 0-0 at half time, and it gives the opposition a lift because they've got into half time at 0-0. If you score one of those chances in the first half, it's a completely different story, unfortunately. But how many times does an anomaly have to happen before it becomes a trend. You know, we've had an anomaly in terms of, we're all over Cheltenham and didn't manage to score. Oh, we're all over Morecambe and didn't manage to win. Okay, let's see how we do it, Fleetwood.
But so George Alec on the Quest highlight show said, sort of called out these excellent performances where the points possibly don't marry up with what am I saying? The performance doesn't match up with the points. Yeah. We'll ask. I think there's certainly questions about this, so we won't go too much into it. Are you feeling confident that suddenly the goals will come from, and this is kind of the basis to which points will come from, or are you just worried a little bit about not getting the goals?
We're still creating the chances, aren't we? You know, we talk about the two that Bond missed, the Aluko block, the long ranges from Backinson and Morsey. So we are still creating chances. We just need somebody to, you know, score one and then go on a little bit of a run of form. And I guess until we stumble across that front three that can do that, then this is how it's going to be. I mean, they've all got their decent records at this level. If you look at Norwood, Jackson, Pigott, and Bond, they've all, you know, in their past scored goals at this level. So they've got the qualities to do it. We just need someone to knock one in off their thigh and then go on a bit of a run of form like Bond was doing in September, because we are still creating chances. Undercooked towards the end, we just simply weren't creating anything, were we? You know, we spoke about Bond's lack of goals, and we were saying, but the Crewe game aside, can we really remember too many chances he's had? At least at the moment, we are starting to create chances. So in theory, you know, it feels like trust McKenna, trust in what he's trying to do and what he's trying to build, and it will come good eventually.
Yep, I think I've probably just shat all over someone's questions. So apologies in advance.
I'm just intrigued.
These.
Sorry, Rich. I'm just intrigued to know how we've managed to find ourselves in a situation where we've got four out of form, bereft of confidence strikers at this exactly the same time at this point in the season.
Same old Ipswich. Yeah, it's a good thought. Get that psychologist back in. Did we find out who your mate is in the nice jacket, by the way? Is that his job?
The yellow shoes, man. Yeah, no idea. It's one of these life's mysteries, man. I'm going to find it. If the last thing I do, I'm going to find out who it is. I'm going to go. I'm going to go.
Do you know who you are? At FIM75, I think. Yeah.
I'm going to go down to near where Dave sits. I'm going to have a sign made out. Can I have your yellow shoes, please, mate? And when he comes over, I'm going to ask who the hell he is.
And I'll put that into room 101. Right, let's do some questions. And first up, one of the number of people that we met on Saturday, Bits at Turbo the Sailor. Thank you for the photos. Yeah, look at those. Aren't they nice? How long do you think we can hold on to McKenna if he continues to improve the squad and the club's fortunes, especially if we are blowing the league away next season, which I think we will, Seb?
I'd like to think he'll be on the rise for
a little while.
It is, yeah. It's not something that we're used to dealing with, are we? You know, normally our managers are on a downward trajectory, either when they join us or certainly by the end of it, whereas McKenna is very much on the up. You know, you've got to think if we do storm the league next year and go up, he'll want to crack at the Championship with us, and I guess it'll be dependent on how much money he gets, how much backing he gets if he wants to hang around. But surely, given what we've seen so far, he's very much destined for the top, isn't he? And hopefully we can make the most of it as long as we possibly can, and maybe look to go on that journey with him.
Positive trajectory together. That's what we want. More questions here. Bod the Nod talking about Thompson. Yeah, a few digging out Thompson. He's been a big part of our record-breaking back line. Lost possession way out wide, but Fridge could have tackled or held up the attacker. Plus, the scorer was totally unmarked. Not all down to Thompson. The Morecambe goal, he's been good in his opinion. Craig, are we being harsh?
He was poor yesterday. He's been fine. He's been okay. I don't think he's been that much of an upgrade of Penny, to be honest. Yes, he probably is better than Penny. I'm not sure he's that much of an upgrade on him. I don't know if he's available. He would be available for transfer, but he's not one that I'd be concerned about if we didn't sign. I don't think any of our loan signings, I'll include Bon in that, to be honest, have done enough to warrant, you know, them being a, oh my God, we can't survive if we don't sign them sort of scenario. So, yeah, he's sort of filled a gap. I appreciate what you're saying about making us more solid. You know, him playing that role allows Burns to disappear up on his side, doesn't it, I suppose, and do the attacking on the right-hand side.
Yeah, there you go. There's the average position. I think they're pretty equitable, actually, aren't they?
Yeah, they were yesterday. But as I say, but whereas Thompson sort of stopped getting his crossing. He was up that end of the pitch, but he wasn't, you know, getting an awful lot of crossing.
No.
I just don't know. I don't think he offers enough going forward. Yeah, he's decent enough at the back, but I say not at the moment. He's got another 2 or 3 months yet of being with us, but I say at the moment he's not someone I'd be actively looking to sign.
Okay. Yep. James Monk. Hi to James. Seb, cutting straight to the chase here. Do you think this spells the end to any promotion dream, or we'll put the league table up and do the roundup right at the end? He asks about the goals drawing up, but should we deal with the most pertinent question there?
It's very much a blow, isn't it? I don't think it's over yet, but it's very much a blow. We need these game in hand to start being ticked off so we get a true understanding of what the gap's going to be. And I still think it's going to come down to those Oxford and Plymouth games. At 5 p.m. after the Plymouth game, I think we'll pretty much know how it's going to go.
And Mark W's question, I'll give this to you as well. Do we keep doing what we're doing, as in developing the style and the identity, or do we chase points and settle for less possession in these last 10 games?
I would personally keep doing what we're doing. That's worked so far, and we're still over 2 points per game. We're exactly on 2 points per game now, so it is working. We look so much better, drilled, coached, fitter, everything. Everything is on an upward trend. So I would keep going as it is now. And if we do miss out this year, so be it. And we'll be in a really, really good place going into the summer to really, really look to attack the league next year with McKenna having had 6 months of his implementing his style and coaching on the team.
I'm not sure we can change the way that we play, to be fair. As I said before, we don't really have that option of slinging it in the box or chucking it in the mixer and seeing what happens. We just don't have those players available to do it. And as Seb says, if we don't happen to reach the playoffs this season, what we will have had is 8-ish of the players that will be here next season, even more drilled and more used to playing the way that we want to play come next season. Maybe just apart from that front three and possibly the left back that we're not too sure about.
Yeah, and to be fair to Mark, that was his preference as well. So I think we've bemoaned, certainly on this podcast, the lack of a pattern of play. McKenna is clearly establishing a pattern of play, and maybe it isn't perfect yet, and we're still seeing some of these forming or teething issues, such as the point where chances are put away with ease. And McKenna himself was talking about that as well. So I think, Mark, we agree with you there. We then get kind of a cascade now of questions about attacking and strikers and so on. So let me try and merge these together for you, Craig. FPL Tractor, is it too simple to say get different forwards in, or do we create a lot of low quality chances and not many big chances? I mean, 5 big chances according to SofaScore stats yesterday. FPL Tractor, is that just his impression? Alex Hare kind of makes an interesting comparison in terms of personnel. Your analysis: Bond versus Ross Stewart. Bond is second only to him for big chances missed, yet Stewart is the division's leading scorer. So if strikers do miss some, are we simply not creating enough clear chances, or is just Bond misfiring?
Bit of both. Copyright David Diamond. We probably aren't creating. I don't remember there being 5 clear-cut chances yesterday. I still think Bond's header should have gone in. That was certainly one of them. Whether they're counting Donatian's chest from 3 yards at the far post as being another, I don't know. But it is still early days in terms of patterns of play and those attacking patterns of play. It's relatively simple, I suppose, to make you more solid, as McCarthy showed when he took over the shambles that we were. First things first, let's get sorted out at the back. Let's make ourselves nice and solid at the back, and then we can concern ourselves about the other bits and pieces going forward. I think that's also certainly we have the proofs in the pudding of what McKenna's done so far in terms of the defensive shape and setup. And it is the trickiest part, isn't it? The piece at the other end. I still don't think. Well, I know that I don't know what McKenna's plans are in terms of the front three.
Yeah. So
is he a 2 up front man, or is he a 1 up front man with 2 behind? Is he a 3 up front? We don't. He's currently working with what he was given to start with. We haven't seen him with a full transfer window to form a squad that will play the way he wants to play. Yeah,
I was going to chuck in a question here, and Les has kind of alluded to that. I think you're sort of suggesting we won't know really until McKenna's been able to bring some of his own personnel in, or some of the players that he does have actually come into form and are doing what he wants them to do. Mullet asks Seb, hello to Mullet, has the lack of goals this week shown flaws in McKenna's new system or in the squad? Do we think the excellent start is levelling out as players are tiring, perhaps? And no Tuesday game this week, worth adding.
Yeah, maybe. Some of the players haven't played that much football, the likes of Norwood and Jackson, so that could be a factor in them. We just, like Craig said, we've got 4 strikers that are badly out of form, all at exactly the same time at the most crucial running point of the season. It's just one of those, isn't it? I very much like the style of play we're watching at the moment. I still think we're creating half decent chances, and as I said earlier, you just want one to go in and set somebody else off on a run. And I guess the position we've got with the contract situation that only Pigott is due to be retained after the summer means that if he wants to, then McKenna can go out and replace those bodies with the kind of players that he really wants. But I don't think it's a flaw in the system. I enjoy the way we're playing, we're creating things, and we just need somebody to take those chances, don't we?
I think the most telling thing for me at the moment is if you compare the style so Lambert and Cook have played passing football at Ipswich, and the possession we've bemoaned being largely in our own half where it doesn't count. The issue at the moment under McKenna is not that we can't get through teams or around teams, because we certainly do. We can pass through them, we can run through them, and we can cross in from the side. It's just the final, whether it's a cross, a little sideways pass, or a shot, that's the problem, which is eminently fixable, isn't it? These are problems that can be sorted. So I think, to your point, I think this is a steady platform that McKenna's putting in place. And I also agree with Craig. I think it's really important to note that defensively we were a shambles prior to McKenna and to even McGreal trying to sort out by changing system as well. So that being resolved and now setting records for longest minutes without conceding a goal suggests that bit has been sorted now. And maybe the next step is to figure out how to get these guys firing.
So you'll just be interested to know, because you've got to have sympathy with the strikers themselves, because they're getting 70 minutes on a Saturday to do what they can, and maybe not getting as many chances as they want to have, and then not playing the next match, or not even in the squad the next match. And Norwood's been out of the squad, Pigott's been out of the squad, and then starting again. But then you've also got sympathy with McKenna, who's probably by his mind thinking, well, I'm giving these guys 70 minutes and they're not showing me enough to warrant playing in it. So it's sort of a vicious circle. It's sort of catch-22, which you can't, because I don't know, people are saying, well, how are these guys going to get any sort of form if they're not playing a run of games? Well, if you're playing like Norwood did for 70 minutes yesterday, then you can't really expect him to be playing the next game, because he didn't pull up many trees. But then he's probably saying, well, you give me another 70 minutes and I will. So I think until such time as McKenna's allowed to bring in the sort of striker that he wants, and I say it'll be interesting to know what he does, because at the moment he's got 4 different strikers pretty much, hasn't he? He's got 4 different types of strikers. Norwood and Bonner similar, but he's also got 4 different types. Whether after the summer, and come August, we'll know how we want to play, and we'll have 2 strikers or 3 strikers who play exactly the same way and are interchangeable, because this is the style that we're going to play. I don't.
Well, let me put this to both of you guys. So Gary Lovell here has said once again, Wes Burns our saviour, our Lord and Saviour. He was slightly disappointed with Thompson, and obviously refers to Bon as well. He says, love to see Tyree Simpson given a go. Can't be any worse than what we've got. And he's got goals at Swindon. But he's really telling here, definitely missing a proven goal-scoring threat. Alex before has mentioned Ross Stewart. If you had a blank sheet of paper, and you obviously, you've got players, you've got who we've got in the summer. So we've got Pigott, and I think possibly Jackson, maybe, or is Jackson out of contract? I don't know.
He's out of contract.
So in terms of first team,
just Pigott.
Pigott and Simpson, I guess, is who you've got for next season. So if you are McKenna right now, would you be seeking to try to tie down any of these options who might be off? Or do you start again from scratch? And do you go for a Cole Stockton, dare I say? Yeah,
but we've gone for a Cole Stockton in Joe Pigott.
Well, yeah, so that's my point. So is this where McKenna, as the coach, comes out and brings that back out of Pigott?
Yeah, very possibly. But we just don't know whether Joe Pigott is the type of striker that Kieran McKenna wants in a Kieran McKenna team. If does he want a central sort of striker, which Joe Pigott is? He'll just work those lines and maybe drop a bit deeper, or does he actually want a striker like Caden Jackson, and maybe a better version of no disrespect to Caden Jackson, but a better quality version of Caden Jackson, who will run the channels, but also add a bit of finishing to it as well. But Joe said himself, if you take these 4 strikers individually, you'll do well to find at League One level better versions of those particular strikers, which is an absolutely fair point. But my version would be, well, I just wonder whether you could get, if we want to play, for example, if you want to play with a Caden Jackson type striker or 2 Caden Jackson type strikers up front, whether you might better get 2 strikers who are better than Caden Jackson, and then you don't worry about having a Macaulay Bonne because that's not the way you want to play. You don't worry about a James Norwood because that's not the way you want to play. We don't know.
Seb, do you want to have a speculate? Would you? Blank sheet of paper. Would you be signing someone new? Would you be making good with what you've got?
I think I'd look to freshen up the area personally. I'd like to see Pigott get a bit of a run maybe now because he's the only one due to be here. He's the one with a decent record at this level. Bonne is really out of form. We discussed it in the green room. Was it 1 in 20, 1 in 21 appearances, 1 in 20 appearances or something
in all comps, yeah.
In all comps, yeah. Very, very out of form. So I'd like to see Pigott, give him 5 games and let's just see what he can do. And if he can do the role that McKenna needs him to, then I guess he's got his number 1 striker in the building already for next season. He can look to add, supplement players to that. And if he plays the 5 games and it's still not going for him, then McKenna can make his mind up and look to move them all on. But like Craig and Joe said, you are going to struggle to upgrade on the 4 because on paper, as you said, they are perfectly adequate at this level.
Yep. As you said, so we just need someone to score off their arse and then go.
That's what you need. You need to run, don't you? But you need somebody to go in and set somebody off and not look back. And in the remaining 11 games, they get half a dozen goals and they go into the summer really, really confident. And you can put your hat on that person for next year.
A couple of, we'll finish these. We'll go through all of the questions. Thank you to everyone, as always, for sending in questions. Help us shape the debate. We usually have to edit it and move around. So I think I'm about to cover everyone's question. Lee Rennie, 73 Rennie. Do you think KVY should have started left back? He kind of thinks in hindsight, obviously with what we know about Thompson's part in the goal, Seb, but I don't think KVY was even on the bench, was he, yesterday? But
no, Burgess was the only defender on the bench. I thought Vincent Young did all right when he came on against Cheltenham. I guess he offers you more from an attacking point of view, which could have been beneficial yesterday, given how many times that Thompson sort of was looking to get in behind, especially when Selena came on. Vincent Young might have made that difference on the left-hand channel. But then, was it Dave said he's not a fan of right-footed players having to cut in and stop. But in hindsight, yes, he should have done. But Christ, if Thompson had been playing, who would have taken the set pieces for the first 70 minutes?
Yeah, well, anyone could have, frankly, and they might have been comparable. And finally, Tim Pashley, I'll leave you this one with you, Craig. Wes Burns' goals keeping Kieran McKenna from getting a hard time from the fans, or would it be better to hold off the moaning? Oh no, come on, Tim. I think we can deal with this one very swiftly.
We're better than that. We're better than that.
We don't moan on this. Yeah. Over on I think we're all very much in the school of McKenna, aren't we? We're big fans of what he's doing. So, and Wes Burns' goals, I think, are getting him, certainly against Morecambe, the points that maybe the team deserved, or actually a fraction of the points that maybe they deserved. So, fully supported that. And everyone's got to contribute. And certainly, if our strikers aren't going to score, someone has to. Let's put the league table up very quickly there. And as always, it's like, if anyone's got a sibling or a younger brother or not, you hold their head and let them swing fists at you and try and punch you, and they haven't got the reach to do it. In terms of the scores of significance for us, Accrington defeating Wycombe. Accrington isn't a fun place to go. That was a 3-2 win there. Very topsy-turvy game. What else have we got? MK Dons beating Bolton, who weren't too far behind us, and still win the shout. But MK Dons continue their fine form with a 2-0 win. Oxford win the battle of the boat race, 4-2. Again, another topsy-turvy game, but Oxford just score goals for fun at the moment, and so a good win for them. Plymouth, though, defeated by the machine that is Rotherham, who I think I heard on the EFL Quest highlights have only conceded 5 goals away from home. That's a crazy stat if that's true. Portsmouth 3-0 with Fleetwood, last minute equaliser for them. Sheffield Wednesday, probably the form team at the moment, 2-0 victors over Charlton, who are in freefall. And Wigan as well, after a few weeks of Sunderland being really, really poor, if we're honest, Sunderland defeat Wigan 3-0, and we prove that Wigan are human after all. So Ipswich, they're 53 points and 5 points off the playoffs, but having played 2 games more than Sheffield Wednesday. But guys, to the question that we talked about from James, the hope, is it still there? Is it keeping you interested? There's still plenty of games, teams to play each other, all stuff. We've not given up yet, have we?
No.
Oh, come on.
No, I think it's a blow this week, but it's certainly not over. I don't think so. If we go to Fleetwood and win and a couple of results go our way, we could be back within touching distance of it again. We just need all those games in hand to start getting ticked off, don't we? So we know where what the true gap is and what the true picture is.
It's been a couple of gut punch though, isn't it? This week, these 2 matches have been real pain in the bum. And so now, as Seb said about these games in hand, Sheffield Wednesday, 2 games in hand, 5 points ahead of us. That could be a pretty substantial gap very soon, couldn't it? And it was quite telling. I think it's the most emotional I'll use from McKenna. I thought post-match, the official interview he had with the club site, I thought that was the most, he
was talking about that we should be winning 4s and 5s, didn't he? He said that.
Yeah, he was very frustrated. He cut a frustrated figure.
He did. Hopefully, he won't be cutting a frustrated figure next week. We mentioned Fleetwood already. That will be the focus for us next week. No midweek game, as we mentioned. So back to the normal kind of mailbag midweek Q&A. We don't have anything else planned at this stage. No interviews or anything like that. So Wednesday evening, one of us and a few of us will be doing a live Q&A. So it would be great if you could join us and ask questions or give your thoughts and observations. And it's the show where you set the agenda. So it'd be great to have you with us. Fleetwood as the focus for the pre-match show, which will come out on Friday morning. And we'll figure out the configuration for that, possibly Seb and I, but we'll see. And then the flagship at this stage, still to be determined who appears for that, but probably Seb, given he's going. It'd be good to get him back. All the details that you need to know about where our podcast audio can be accessed from, our YouTube feed, our social media feed, where you can see such great photos as me, Craig and Seb along the seafront and the Eric Morecambe statue. All of the stuff, Blue Monday, ITFC.co.uk. We put an itinerary of all the shows on there as well, so you know where to be. And do give us a follow if you are listening. Do give us a review. We'd love to hear from people. Give us some feedback, hopefully constructive criticism if you're going to be critical. Give us a review and give us a thumbs up and a subscribe on YouTube if you're there as well. It just helps boost us up the algorithms and all that fun stuff. If you've made it this far through, thank you so much for joining us. Really interesting chat as always with the guys. Seb, Craig, thank you for your company on the weekend, and thank you for your company for this podcast. Do you want to say goodbye? Craig, I'll come to you first.
Yes, thank you very much. And once again, thanks to Mallet for our fish supper, and also for my son, who he didn't need to buy a fish supper for. Well, sausage and chips, but he did. So thank you very much for that, Mallet. I owe you one.
Yep, and Seb?
Yep, good to see you guys yesterday. Lovely stroll along the promenade, and we go again next weekend, I guess.
Yep, and from me, thank you to the guys again. Thank you for your questions, and congratulations again to ITFC Women. We'll keep a lookout for their FA Cup draw, and we're back for more next week. And on this podcast, you know what? Let's keep the hope alive.